Hello, it's Joe, and in this video I am going to be talking about 5 of the books that I read recently. As always, there will be timestamps and trigger warnings in the description if you want to check those out. First up is The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This follows 3 teenage girls who come together to avenge the rape of their fellow classmate. So as you can imagine, this book deals with some pretty heavy topics. So you've got rape culture, misogyny, sexuality, and virginity, as well as a host of other things. So it's definitely not a light read. However, I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it got off to a bit of a slow start, and there were a couple of pacing issues in the middle where some of the chapters I felt were going a bit too slowly. But when this book picked up, it really picked up, and especially the last, I would say, 100 pages or so were completely engaging, and I was fully immersed in the story and what was going on and the characters. And I just thought the heavy topics that I mentioned earlier were handled really well, and the main 3 characters got a shit ton of development, which I really enjoyed, and I personally found the ending of this book to be very satisfying. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I definitely recommend picking this up if it sounds like something that you'd be interested in, because I personally really enjoyed it. Next up is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray, and this is the sequel to The Diviners, which I'm sure you've all heard of, but if there's anyone out there who hasn't, it is basically a paranormal urban fantasy set in the 1920s in New York City, and it follows a group of characters. The first book is very much about a girl named Evie, but this book sort of branches off and is very much about some of the other characters. So it's one of those books where if you don't like the characters, you're not really going to like the book. Personally, there are 4 characters in this one that really stood out to me and made me really enjoy it. Those were Evie, Sam, Henry and Ling. Ling wasn't in the first book, but she's in this one, and she's definitely one of my new favourite characters in this series. I ended up giving this book 3.6 out of 5 stars, which is more than I gave the first book, I think, and I definitely did enjoy this one more than its prequel, the first book. And that was largely in part to do with the 4 characters that I just mentioned, particularly Henry and Ling. I thought their friendship dynamic in this book was absolutely incredible, and I am a sucker for platonic friendships, so of course I absolutely loved it. I thought the plot in this book was crafted really well, and I think Libba Bray is a master at crafting an overarching plot as well, because even though there is a plot contained within this book, you can kind of tell there's this underlying huge plot that's going on with the series as a whole, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking up the next book in the series, which is Before the Devil Breaks You. I actually have a copy of it already, and I kind of want to read it before the 4th and final book comes out in February. I don't know if I'll be able to manage it because it's the end of January now and I haven't picked it up, but we will see, and I am very excited to pick it up and see what happens. The next book is The Devouring Gray by Christine Lynn Herman. This has been compared to Stranger Things, and I definitely see that comparison, but I would also compare it to The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So it's a very Netflix kind of book. It follows a girl named Violet who moves to the town of Four Paths where her mother was brought up, and the town is getting attacked by a creature from another dimension, and she sort of gets wrapped up in the whole plot of it all. I'm not going to tell you more than that because I think it's something you just need to dive into. But I gave this 3.2 stars out of 5. So I enjoyed it. I thought it had a nice atmosphere. The writing was easy to follow, easy to understand, kept me gripped for the most part. I just had a few problems with the characters being a bit flat. Some of them were annoying and flat, which is a really bad combination. I just didn't feel fully invested in what was going on, but I was entertained. So I'm not sure if I'm going to pick up the sequel to this one. It comes out this year, so if people read it and love it a lot more than this one, then I might give it a try. But for now, I'm not really in a rush to pick up the next book, even though, as I say, I did enjoy this one. Next up is The Deathless Girls by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, and I talked about this in my best books of 2019 video. Essentially, this book is an origin story for two of the brides of Dracula. It follows two sisters, Lil and Kizzy. However, it is told from the perspective of Lil only. And essentially, at the beginning of the book, their traveller community is attacked and a lot of their family are killed and they are enslaved, unfortunately. And it sort of follows their journey from enslavement to becoming vampire brides. And I just want to make it clear, I say this in like every video where I've talked about this book, but this book is not really a vampire book. There are vampires in it, but they only really come into it towards the end. So if you're going into this book expecting vampires from start to finish, you're not going to get it. It's more a book about the two sisters and their journey into eventually getting to that point. So again, it's more about the journey than the destination. And I personally really loved it. I thought the writing was beautiful. I thought the relationships between the characters, especially the two sisters, but other characters as well, I thought they were really, really great. There is a sapphic romance in this book that I personally enjoyed. It wasn't very integral to the story. In fact, it wasn't very important at all. However, what we got, I did enjoy. And I definitely plan on rereading this book in the future to see if it's one of my all-time favourite books or whether it's just a favourite book of last year. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, by the way. I'm very excited to read more of Kieran Millwood Hargrave's books because I really enjoyed her writing. And this was her first YA book, and she's releasing her first adult book, which is called The Mercies, later this year. So I'm very excited to read that. And if you haven't tried this book yet, please give it a go. Just bear in mind what I said about the whole it's not all about vampires thing. Book number 5 is Wool by Hugh Howey, which I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. This book has been talked about a bit and kind of hated on in the last couple of months in the community because it was the Papercut Book Club pick for November or December, I think. Cindy and Kat really didn't like it, and Jordan didn't really like it either, but she liked it a bit more than the other two. I'm kind of on Jordan's side of things, where I didn't particularly love it, but I kind of want to defend it when people say it's awful because I really don't think it's that bad. So it's a dystopian, and it's set in the future of our world where there's like a toxic gas on the surface of the earth, and so humanity has kind of mostly died off, and we follow the remaining humans who live in this silo underneath the ground, and it's full of very strict rules and a lot of stairs. I do understand where some of the hate towards this book is coming from, because it definitely got off to a very, very slow start. I've never DNF'd a book before, and I really didn't want this to be my first DNF, so I persevered through the first however many pages, and I actually think once we got to a certain point, I think it was when our main character, Juliet, was finally introduced. I think from then on, I was more invested because I liked her as a character more than the previous perspective characters. There was a constant feeling of suspense and tension when reading this book for me, which I personally really enjoyed feeling. And some of the chapters in this book actually quite scared me. Not like majorly. Well, actually, there was one chapter, I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but there was a chapter in water, and that chapter scared the shit out of me because I hate, like, going underwater, and I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it's, like, very intense, and it made me feel a lot of things, and I personally took that as a good thing because I think that was what it was supposed to make me feel. Also, I agree with people who say the characters are quite flat. A lot of them are quite flat. It was kind of the suspense and the tension that I mentioned earlier, along with the fact that I did enjoy Juliet as the main character. Those are the reasons why I personally enjoyed it. I didn't really find it that generic. I couldn't predict what was going to happen, and so everything that did happen was a surprise to me, and I was quite satisfied with it. By no means do I think this is on the level of The Hunger Games or even Scythe, but I do think it's as good as Divergent and definitely better than the Maze Runner trilogy. So yeah, if you're into dystopian and you're open-minded and this sounds like something you'd enjoy, then pick it up. So those are 5 of the books that I have read recently. Let me know if you've read any of them and what you thought of them in the comments below. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like or a thumbs up. If you think you like more of my videos, then subscribe below. All of my social media links will be down in the description if you want to check those out. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day. Goodbye.